The Wildlife Adventure, exploring wildlife habitats. Once upon a time, in a small town surrounded by nature, there lived two best friends named Emma and Jack. They were both 12 years old and loved nature. Every weekend, they would go on little adventures in the woods near their town. But one day, they decided to go on a bigger adventure, a wildlife adventure. Planning the adventure. One sunny afternoon, while sitting under their favorite tree, Emma turned to Jack and said, "Jack, do you know what would be amazing? Going on a real wildlife adventure. We can explore different habitats and see animals in their natural homes." Jack's eyes lit up with excitement. "That sounds awesome, Emma. But where should we go?" Emma pulled out a map she had been hiding in her backpack. "I got this map from the library. It shows different wildlife habitats around our area. There's a forest, a river, a swamp, and even a mountain. We could explore them all." Jack nodded eagerly. "Let's pack our bags and leave early tomorrow morning." They spent the rest of the day preparing for their adventure. Emma packed some food, water, a first aid kit, and her camera. Jack packed a flashlight, some extra clothes, and his favorite book about animals. They were ready for their big adventure. The journey begins. The next morning, just as the sun began to rise, Emma and Jack set off on their adventure. The first place they decided to explore was the forest. The forest was dark and full of tall trees. The ground was covered in leaves, and the air smelled fresh. As they walked deeper into the forest, they heard the sounds of birds singing and leaves rustling. Suddenly, they saw a deer standing quietly by a tree. The deer looked at them with its big, brown eyes, then quickly ran away into the woods. "Wow! Did you see that, Jack?" whispered Emma. "A real deer?" Jack nodded, his eyes wide with amazement. "This is so cool. I feel like a real explorer." They continued walking and soon found a small stream. The water was clear, and they could see little fish swimming. Emma took out her camera and snapped a picture. "This place is so beautiful. I wish we could stay here forever." But Jack reminded her that they had more places to explore. "We can come back another time. We still have the river, the swamp, and the mountain to see." The river habitat. After leaving the forest, they followed the map to the river. The river was wide and fast. The water rushed over rocks, making a loud noise. On the banks of the river, they saw some ducks swimming and a beaver building a dam. Jack was fascinated by the beaver. "Look, Emma! The beaver is using its teeth to cut down trees and build a dam. That's amazing." Emma agreed. Beavers are incredible builders. They make their homes by blocking the river with logs and mud. I wonder how long it takes them to build a dam. They sat by the river for a while, watching the beaver work. Then they decided to cross the river using a small bridge they found. On the other side, they saw more animals, frogs hopping around, and dragonflies buzzing near the water. The swamp habitat. Next, they headed to the swamp. The swamp was very different from the forest and the river. It was wet and muddy, and the air was thick with the smell of plants and water. The ground was soft, and they had to be careful where they stepped. As they walked through the swamp, they saw all kinds of creature snakes slithering through the grass, turtles sunbathing on logs, and alligators lurking in the water. Emma was a little scared of the alligators. "We should be careful, Jack. Alligators can be dangerous." Jack nodded. "Yes, but they're also very interesting. They've been around since the time of the dinosaurs. Isn't that cool?" Emma agreed, but she was still glad when they left the swamp and headed towards their next destination, the mountain. Heading to the mountain. As the sun began to set, Emma and Jack reached the foot of the mountain. They were tired from walking all day, but they were excited to see what adventures the mountain would bring. Emma looked up at the tall mountain and smiled. "This is going to be the best part of our adventure, Jack. I just know it." Jack agreed, but he also felt a little nervous. It's going to be a big climb. "We should rest here for the night and start fresh in the morning." Emma nodded, and they set up a small camp near the base of the mountain. They ate some of the food they had packed and talked about all the amazing things they had seen that day. The night in the wilderness. As they lay under the stars, Emma and Jack listened to the sounds of the wilderness around them. They could hear the distant howl of a wolf, the hoot of an owl, and the chirping of crickets. It was peaceful, but also a little spooky. Jack whispered, "Emma, do you think we'll see more animals tomorrow?" Emma smiled in the dark. "I hope so, Jack. I can't wait to see what's up on the mountain. Maybe we'll find something really special." With that thought in mind, they both drifted off to sleep, dreaming of the adventures that awaited them the next day. The Wildlife Adventure. Exploring wildlife habitats. The climb begins. The next morning, Emma and Jack woke up just as the sun began to rise. The mountain loomed tall and mysterious in front of them. They knew that today's adventure would be different, more challenging, but also more exciting. After a quick breakfast of fruits and bread, they packed up their camp and began the climb. The path up the mountain was steep and rocky. Emma and Jack had to watch their steps carefully to avoid slipping. As they climbed higher, the air became cooler and the trees grew thinner. Soon, they reached a point where the forest ended, and only small bushes and rocks were around them. Emma stopped to catch her breath. "This is tough, Jack, but look at the view. We can see the whole forest from here." Jack looked out over the landscape. The forest they had explored yesterday stretched out below them like a green sea, with the river winding through it like a silver ribbon. In the distance, they could see the swamp, shining under the morning sun. "This is amazing, Emma," Jack said, smiling. "I'm glad we decided to climb the mountain. I wonder what we'll find at the top." discovering mountain wildlife. As they continued to climb, they started to notice signs of wildlife. Small animals darted between the rocks, and birds circled overhead. Jack pointed out a family of mountain goats standing on a cliff. "Look at them, Emma. How do they stand on such steep rocks without falling?" Emma marveled at the goats' balance. Mountain goats are incredible climbers. They have special hooves that help them grip the rocks. They're perfectly adapted to living in this rough environment. They watched the goats for a while, amazed at how easily they moved across the rocky cliffs. The goats were just one of the many animals that called the mountain home. As they climbed higher, they saw a golden eagle soaring above them. Its wings spread wide as it glided through the sky, searching for prey. Jack was in awe. That eagle is so powerful. It can see for miles from up there. Emma nodded. Eagles are top predators in this area. They can spot small animals from high up in the sky and dive down to catch them. They're one of the fastest birds in the world. They continued their climb, feeling more connected to nature with each step. The mountain was full of surprises, and they were eager to see what other creatures they would encounter. A challenging path. The higher they climbed, the more difficult the path became. The air was thinner, making it harder to breathe, and the rocks were sharp and slippery. Emma and Jack had to help each other up the steeper parts of the trail, using their hands to pull themselves up over large boulders. At one point, they came to a narrow ledge that they had to cross. Below them was a steep drop, and one wrong step could mean a dangerous fall. Emma went first, moving slowly and carefully. She held on to the rocks with both hands and placed each foot with caution. Jack followed closely behind, his heart pounding with nerves. When they finally reached the other side, they both let out a sigh of relief. "That was scary," Jack admitted, "but we did it." Emma smiled, feeling proud of their teamwork. "We make a great team, Jack. Let's keep going. The top can't be too far now." Reaching the summit. After several more hours of climbing, they finally reached the summit. The top of the mountain was flat and covered with small, colorful flowers that grew between the rocks. The sky was clear, and they could see for miles in every direction. It was a breathtaking sight. Emma and Jack stood at the edge of the summit, looking out over the world below. They could see the forest, the river, the swamp, and even the town where they lived. Everything looked so small from up here. "This is the most beautiful place I've ever seen," Emma whispered, taking in the view. Jack nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. "We made it, Emma." We climbed all the way to the top. I'll never forget this moment. They sat down to rest and ate the last of their food. As they enjoyed their meal, they noticed more animals that lived on the mountain. There were small, furry marmots that whistled to each other, and a family of snow leopards that moved gracefully across the rocks in the distance. Emma took out her camera and started taking pictures. These animals are so well adapted to living up here. They can survive in harsh conditions that would be too tough for other creatures. Jack watched the snow leopards with admiration. They're so strong and beautiful. I'm glad we got to see them in their natural habitat. A special discovery. Just as they were about to leave the summit, Emma noticed something shining in the sunlight. She walked over to a pile of rocks and found a small, crystal-clear pool of water. Inside the pool were tiny, bright-colored fish. "Jack, come look at this," Emma called out. Jack ran over and looked into the pool. How did these fish get up here? We're so high up on the mountain, Emma thought for a moment. Maybe this pool was formed by rainwater, and the fish eggs were carried here by birds. It's amazing how life can exist even in the most unlikely places. They spent some time watching the fish swim around in the pool. It was a small, hidden treasure that made their adventure even more special. The journey down. After spending a few hours at the summit, Emma and Jack knew it was time to head back down. The sun was beginning to set, and they didn't want to get caught on the mountain after dark. The journey down was just as challenging as the climb up. They had to be even more careful with their steps, especially on the steep parts. But they were tired and happy, and they knew they had accomplished something incredible. As they descended, they saw the mountain in a new light. The shadows grew longer, and the colors of the rocks and plants changed with the setting sun. It was as if the mountain was saying goodbye to them. A new understanding. When they finally reached the base of the mountain, it was almost dark. Emma and Jack were exhausted, but filled with a deep sense of satisfaction. They had explored the forest, the river, the swamp, and the mountain, and they had seen so many amazing animals in their natural habitats. Emma turned to Jack and said, "This adventure has taught me so much about nature and wildlife. I feel like I understand the world better now." Jack nodded. "Me too, Emma. I never knew there were so many different habitats and animals. We're lucky to have seen them with our own eyes." They walked back to their town, talking about all the things they had learned. They realized that nature was full of surprises and that every creature had its place in the world. They also understood the importance of protecting these habitats so that future generations could experience the same wonders. Returning home. When they finally reached home, it was late at night. Their parents were waiting for them, worried but relieved to see them safe. Emma and Jack told them all about their adventure, the animals they saw, the challenges they faced, and the beauty of the mountain. Their parents listened with smiles, proud of their children's bravery and curiosity. "You two are real explorers," Emma's mom said. "I'm so glad you had this experience." Jack's dad nodded. "You've learned something that can't be taught in books. The world is a big, beautiful place, and it's up to us to take care of it." The end of the adventure. That night, as Emma and Jack lay in their beds, they thought about all they had seen and done. The memories of the deer in the forest, the beaver at the river, the alligators in the swamp, and the snow leopards on the mountain filled their minds. Emma whispered into the darkness, "Jack, this was the best adventure ever. I'll never forget it." Jack smiled. "Me neither, Emma. And who knows? Maybe next time we'll explore even more habitats and discover new animals." With those thoughts, they drifted off to sleep, dreaming of future adventures in the wild. Conclusion: Emma and Jack's wildlife adventure was more than just a journey through different habitats. It was a journey of discovery, learning, and understanding the natural world. They realized that every animal, plant, and environment is important, and that exploring the wild is a way to connect with the earth. Their story reminds us that the world is full of wonders waiting to be explored, and that there is always something new to learn about nature. Whether it's in a forest, by a river, in a swamp, or on a mountain, the adventure never ends. Thank you for joining Emma and Jack on their wildlife adventure. We hope their story inspires you to explore the world around you and discover the beauty of nature. Remember to protect and cherish our planet, for it is the home of all living things.